I bet you didn't know that the majority of the people that buy property in Costa Rica end up with buyer's remorse. It's sad but true. A lot of people come to Costa Rica, they buy the first piece of property they find, only to later find out that they got overcharged terribly bad, or they ended up buying property in an area that they really don't like because they didn't do their research, they didn't do their due diligence, they run into one problem after another, so they try to sell their property, then it sits on the market for years, only for them just to go back home because they couldn't sell that property so that they can buy property that would be much nicer. Well, I recently interviewed this international attorney that can help you to avoid a lot of those heartaches and a lot of those problems so that when you're coming to Costa Rica, you won't end up with buyer's remorse. Now that video is extremely detailed and very, very good. The people that's watched that video so far have commented about, wow, the golden nuggets in this video, how extremely good it was. Lots of great comments. However, that video is an hour long, and I realize a lot of people don't want to take time for an hour to pick out all of these golden nuggets. So what I've done was condense this video down to as short as possible so that you can get the best pieces out of there. And then after you watch this short version, you'll probably say, I'm going to watch that whole hour-long interview with this international attorney. She's extremely good in what she does, and she specializes in Costa Rica real estate. So enjoy this video as we take and show you everything you need to know about buying real estate in Costa Rica. But first, I am giving away a 3-day Costa Rican adventure just for watching videos on my channel and learning all about living in Costa Rica. Subscribe now, hit that notification bell so you don't miss out, and watch to the end and I'll explain how you can qualify to win. And you know what? While you're on vacation, you might find a piece of property that you just can't wait to buy. But you know what? Buying property in Costa Rica is a big difference than buying property in the United States or Canada. But the most important thing you can do when buying property in Costa Rica is making sure that you have a good and honest attorney. You know, I've been here since 2013, and I have met a lot of attorneys. I've had several different attorneys actually do legal work for me. However, while I'm sure a lot of those were good attorneys, in every single one of them, I've yet to find what I thought was a good and honest attorney. But I'm telling you, finding a good and honest attorney is kind of like finding a needle in a haystack. But I've got some good news. I believe I have found a needle in a haystack. And today, I can't wait to introduce you to this international attorney. And today, she is the expert because we are talking about buying Costa Rica real estate, and that is something she specializes in. So let me take a moment here to bring on our special guest. Hey, good morning, Christine. How are you?
I'm very good. How are you?
I'm great. Hey, thank you so much for taking time to share some of your expert knowledge with our people. So I was just telling everybody today we are talking about buying Costa Rica real estate. And look, I think the most important thing is to find a good and honest attorney. It's a lot of information. So what I'm doing is I'm breaking this up into a 3-part video series. So you want to make sure that if you haven't done so already, you want to make sure to subscribe. Hey, hit that notification bell because you don't want to miss a single episode so you can learn everything you need to know about buying Costa Rica real estate. With that said, let's go ahead and get started. Are you ready, Cristina?
I am. Yeah. First of all, thank you for having me. I recently bought the property myself, so I know how challenging that can be.
Cristina has been in Costa Rica for 8 years, and she has been an attorney for a lot longer than that, but now she's an international attorney since she's come to Costa Rica. So I'm excited to find out more about her, but whenever you get ready to contact Cristina, make sure that you go in the description below or that first comment so that you can download that free PDF, and that way it's going to have all of the information you need to know in order to contact her so she can help you when buying property in Costa Rica. So the first question here, Cristina, is there are a lot of different types of properties in Costa Rica. Tell me a little bit about that.
As you know, it has 12 different ecosystems. There is, from oceans to mountaintops, there are volcans, there are rainforests, there's everything you may look for in a country in Costa Rica. So I think Costa Rica is a perfect place no matter what you're looking for. You are going to find it in Costa Rica, and that's very important.
I agree. But you know what? There is one thing all of those properties have in common. So what is the main difference when I'm looking at those properties? What's the main difference between all those properties?
Okay, the main difference is between titled property or fee simple properties and concession property. And if you allow me, I will also add a specific section for condominiums, and we can get back to that later on. But the main difference is a property with a title that you can really own, and then there is concession properties. 95% of Costa Rican beachfront lands are concession property. What does concession property mean? It means that you cannot own that property. Even though you cannot own that land because it's part of the maritime zone, you can still get a concession agreement with a municipality that is in charge of that type of property. So condominium is referred to the specific properties regulated under the Condominium Property Law, a law of 1999. Only condominium created and registered before a notary public under the condominium regime are subject to those specific rules. But it's important for you to know because, if you are part of a condominium, then there's going to be a governing body with a lot of authority that can be on charge of taking some decision, and there are going to be strict rules. So you have to be very careful to when determining what type of property you are looking for in Costa Rica.
To break it down, we really got three different pieces of property, and we have titled property. So that's really the easy one. But then we have the concession property. Now, the concession property, which is normally beachfront property. And then, of course, we got that separate category with the condos, which I didn't know about. But hey, one cool thing is that, look, you don't need to know about all of those details. Cristina does. So that is just the biggest reason why you need to contact her. Okay, so let's go on to the next question real quick here. I used to live in Japan for 3 years. And in that country, a foreigner could not buy property in Japan. Now, Costa Rica, I think, is different. So tell me, are there any restrictions that as a foreigner I need to know about buying property?
Yes, depending on the type of property. So for titled property, there are no restrictions. Any foreigner can own them, can buy them. For concession properties, there are restrictions. If you are a foreigner, then how can you obtain a concession zone? You can do that through a corporation. But again, there is another limitation. If a corporation owns the concession property, the concession agreement, 50% of the share of the corporation owning the concession agreement must belong to a Costa Rican. Of course, as attorneys, we can help you, find a solution that may be good for you, but that's a whole different discussion.
Now, our next question is, how about incentives? Surely there must be some incentives because I know the government has been working on several laws to really incentivize, really encourage foreigners to come to Costa Rica. So tell me about some incentives.
Yes, of course. Luckily, there are some incentives. And I will say the first important thing as a foreigner that is looking to buy a property in Costa Rica, the first thing you want to know is that once you've done an investment in Costa Rica, it can make you eligible for a temporary residency here in Costa Rica. And here we can see the first incentives that have been granted during COVID. So there is a law number 9996 of 2021 that reduced the minimum threshold required to obtain temporary residency as investor, bringing it down to $150,000, while previously it was $200,000, which, considering the market in Costa Rica at the moment, is really feasible to reach because, unfortunately, properties prices have gone up during COVID, so it's pretty common to pay at least $150,000.
Okay, so that's great. So we have quite a few incentives, but that applies really whenever you are getting ready to apply for your residency. Hey, and we'll go into more detail on that in another episode whenever we really kind of break down all of the nuts and bolts of, the different types of residencies. Hey, while there are some restrictions, it's not many, but there are some great incentives as well. So let's get on to the next question here. In your opinion, what do you think is the best way for people to actually find property in Costa Rica?
So it's important for you to come in person, and not only because the best deals sometimes are off the market, are off the listings, but also because, hey, you want to relocate to Costa Rica, you want to make sure that you really like the area where you're going to be buying your property. That said, once you come in person, I do still think that realtors can be very helpful. So you want to come here, talk to the people, and see what realtors they will recommend you. And go talk to those realtors. It's important to have an honest attorney. You're saying it's important to also find an honest realtor. Of course, you could do direct purchases, directly with the seller. I've done many of them with my clients.
Well, that brings up the next question. Who can be a realtor in Costa Rica? I heard anybody can be a realtor in Costa Rica. Am I right?
Yes and no. In the practice, you will see any type of realtors, Costa Rican, foreigners, and I will say in the Nosara area, most of them are foreigners, which can be good. You're a citizen coming here. You may feel more comfortable with somebody that speaks your own language and comes from, the US, just like you. But you must make sure that they have not only the experience, but the proper permits to operate. Since 2019, realtors agencies are required to be registered before SUGEF. SUGEF in Spanish is Superintendencia General de Entidades Financieras. In the US, it's similar like the OCC in the US. Want to make sure that the real estate agent is registered before SUGEF.
Let's say now that I have finally found the piece of property that I want to buy. What would be the normal process to start the buying process of buying property in Costa Rica?
Okay. So first of all, you're saying get an attorney.
Get an attorney, most important thing.
Yeah, sometimes sellers like, I have an attorney. Don't worry, you can use my attorney. Please don't. Let's always keep seller's attorney separate from buyer's attorney. The interests, that are in place are different. Seller has one interest, buyer has a different one. So you want to make sure you pick your own attorney. Many realtors can refer attorneys. We do work, for example, with some real estate agencies here. They refer clients to us. So you can, if you have a realtor that you trust, you can also listen to them when it comes to getting an attorney, as long as it's not the same attorney of the seller. So let's say you find an honest attorney. So what are the next steps? So the first step is to put a written document with the offer. And for us, it's very fast and easy to prepare sales and purchase agreement. The only information that we need from our clients or the realtors is the folio number of the property, meaning the number under which the property is recorded at the Public Registry of Costa Rica. You don't have that, we can also work with the plano because we can obtain that information indirectly to the plano, the survey of the property. So after you sign the sales and purchase agreement, you have to pay the initial deposit. You were saying your friend was willing to pay 30%. That's a lot. Standard percentage to be paid as initial deposit as down payment is 10%. And usually you pay it after you sign the sales and purchase agreement. And I would recommend not paying it directly to seller. I would recommend putting it into an escrow. So it's always a good thing to involve escrow. And also from the buyer perspective, if you put the initial deposit into escrow and in the sales and purchase agreement, you establish that it's going to be kept into escrow until closing, then you make sure that if worst case scenario, during the due diligence, we find some red flags and we recommend to our client not to buy the property, you want to make sure that the initial deposit is still into escrow, because if you have to pursue the seller that was already trying to sell you something not really good, then it's going to be a problem. On the contrary, the escrow agents are regulated again by SUGEF, so you can usually trust them. If they have the initial deposit and you tell them, the due diligence found out that the property does not belong to seller, escrow, give me my money back. So let's say we open escrow, the initial deposit is there, then it's due diligence time. And this is our job. So as attorneys, we lead the due diligence phase because we may require other professionals to be involved. I always recommend a topographer. If you're buying a building, then you may also want an inspection on the property. You want to have a soil test if it's a land and you want to build on it. So there are other professionals that may be involved. And hydrogeologists, if there's no water yet on the property, you need to drink well on the property, you want to involve an hydrogeologist and so on. But we as attorney are the ones supposed to recommend you who you should involve. So that's another reason why you need to trust your attorney, and the attorney is the person who should tell you, hey, you need to check this, you need to check this, you need to check this. So now let's say we checked all the boxes, everything is perfect, then it's closing time. First, we prepare the so-called closing statement. So we remind our clients of all the closing expenses, and we remind them of everything that needs to be paid. And also we coordinate with seller because sometimes from the purchase price there are some deductions that are going to be made at closing. For example, realtors. Okay, usually realtors are paid by the seller, and the payment is done through the purchase price. So seller agrees that a percentage of the purchase price is going to be deducted to pay the realtors. So
okay, so it's quite a bit there. So correct me if I'm wrong here. So I think the most important thing is first, obviously, get you a good and honest attorney. And then, of course, you're going to start with your letter of intent about buying the property, then your sales and purchase agreement. Then we get involved with the actual payments and the initial deposit. But that initial deposit, extremely important to go into an escrow, because if it goes to the seller, well, then if for some reason you've changed your mind, find out they don't own it. If they don't own it and you put that money directly to a seller, you'll never see that money again. So very important to use that. And of course, once that money is in escrow, it's time for the attorney to do all of the due diligence. They do their due diligence, then closing, and then in just a few short weeks, it's yours.
Yes, correct.
Wow. Okay. I can see why I need a good attorney. But let's say I found that piece of property and, hey, I've contacted you, but I need to go home for whatever reason. Do I need to be present in order to actually buy that property? Do I need to be in Costa Rica?
No, you don't need to be if you are able to grant a power of attorney for somebody else to sign on your behalf the day of the transfer. And this is very important. I think people sometimes think that a power of attorney can only be granted if you are buying a property through a corporation, which is true. If you are buying the property through a corporation, it's very easy to prepare the documents of a power of attorney. But even you as a person could grant a power of attorney, and you have two ways to do so.
So it sounds like there's two ways to actually buy property in Costa Rica. I can buy property in my own name, or I can buy property in a corporation. Give me just real basically, the pros and cons of both of those.
Cons, let's start with that. Cost. It's going to be more expensive. Pros, it's going to make your life a lot easier, especially if you're buying the property as a foreigner, not resident.
There's some safety measures in place by having your property in a corporation. Now, while having a property in your corporation is a little bit more expense, and we're going to actually be doing another video segment at a later time where we break down all the requirements for a corporation, because I have a corporation, and one of the big things I didn't understand when I was told that I needed a corporation. But first, how do we qualify to win that 3-day Costa Rica vacation? It's easy to qualify to win this 3-day Costa Rican adventure by doing these 4 simple tasks. First, subscribe and hit that notification bell. This way, you will not miss out on future videos and more opportunities to win. Second, click the like button. Literally, it takes 2 seconds, so do it right now. Third, comment. Let me know if you've learned something and what else you'd like to learn. And fourth, share this video. You never know whose life you will change because you took a few seconds to share this video on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest. Heck, share it on all your social media profiles. was I'm like, well, I already have a corporation. Yes, I have an S Corp in the United States, but that's not the same as having a Costa Rican corporation. I had to set that up entirely different. But hey, having a corporation does make it sound like it would make my life a whole lot easier in many different ways, but we'll go into details on that in one of our next videos. What would be the normal cost or fees of actually buying a piece of property or real estate in Costa Rica?
Okay, I will say 5% all included, meaning legal fees, topographer fees, inspection fees. Roughly, it's a 5% of the purchase price. In Costa Rica, notary fees are set by the law. So the fees of the notary for the deed of transfer are going to set by the law. And transfer tax and stamps are also established by the law. But, you know, to sum up everything, including stamps, transfer tax, legal fees, and everything, it's roughly 5% of the purchase price.
You know, what makes me feel good is not only are you going to help me to buy the property, but you're going to help me to make sure that I pay all of my taxes, and not just pay my taxes, but to make sure that I don't overpay. That is great. Okay, look, that is a lot of information, and that's why we're having several segments and several videos that's going to really break it all down on what you need to know when it comes to buying Costa Rica real estate. Cristina, it has been a pleasure having you to share your expert knowledge. I'm excited to share this with everybody, and I can't wait till we talk again here in another week or two. So make sure to subscribe, hit that notification bell. And look, I'm so glad that I found Cristina, because we're going to learn a lot of good stuff. So keep watching, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for having me.